Hey, welcome to February Cellar Dweller. Rob Wallace here. I'm giving Stu the day off of doing intros, so I thought I'd take over. And so for February, we have three wonderful things that we're going to show you guys. First of all, we're going to have Patrick talk about tech sheets and what those are all about. Then we're going to have Professor Paco come and he's going to talk about pH. And then at the end, Jenny, myself, and Stu are going to talk about all the wonderful things that happen at BarrelBreak. So Patrick's going to take it away. Patrick, it's yours.
Thanks, Rob. Let's talk tech sheets. This is a one-stop shop information sheet you're going to have with your wine. It gives you all specifics on there. You'll notice some of the chemistry, the pH, and the bricks at harvest, and the TA, which is titratable acidity, of course, and some of the alcohol. Gives you some of the information on the chemistry and the flavors and aromas that you might pick up when tasting this wine. And you might want to include that on your copy on the back label, or just for you to impress your friends at your poker night. And so we wanted you to have the information so that you can have more insight into what we have done on the wine. Gives you how much time we spend in barrels and what types of barrels, definitely French, and whether stainless or what types of fermentation protocol went on there, whether your wine went through malolactic fermentation or not. There's a lot of information that you can gain from this, you can understand, but really the soul is the wine itself. But this is a lot of information that describes it. So tech sheets are helpful and very valuable, I think. So we'll be happy to share those with you at the appropriate time. But I'm happy to answer any questions if you guys ever have any questions about that. But you can definitely find most of the information about the wine on the tech sheet itself. So I would love to pass the information now over to Professor Paco, and he's going to talk to you about one of the informations on here, pH, such a critical part of the wine. So please take it over, Mr. Paco. Cheers.
All right, thanks, Patrick. So we're going to go over pH, which is one of the great misunderstood points in tech sheets, and what it is and what it is used for. pH is the concentration of free protons. This is the formula, the negative logarithm of the concentration of H+, which is a proton, and it comes to represent the strength of the acidity in wine. It's a scale that doesn't have any units, and it goes from 0, lowest pH, more acidic, to 14, highest pH, more alkaline or less acidic. However, in wine, we deal with pHs between 2.9 or so, all the way to 4. pH is very important in winemaking for several reasons, but especially for wine stability, microbiology, and also microbial stability, of course, and directly related to this, the effectivity of sulfur or sulfites. It is not so strongly correlated with the perception of acidity. That's what we use TA or titratable acidity for. But according to some people, it is related somehow to freshness in wine. Of course, pH is going to give you an idea of the acidity of the wine, but TA is a much more useful and consistent value to understand perception of acidity. And TA, instead of being the strength of the acidity in the wine, comes to be the total amount of acids. And it's much better correlated with sensory than with the perception of sourness. So we use pH much more for a technical winemaking standpoint. TA is used for sensory, to be consistent in acidity among wines from among vintages and so on. And why are pH and TA different? There's several reasons. We could get geeky with chemistry, but pretty much the buffer capacity of a wine, the ratio of organic acids, in other words, the ratio of tartaric to malic, succinic, and a lot of other acids, and the concentration of potassium. But I think it would be interesting to get a little deeper into these points, or why pH is very important in winemaking and how Patrick and I look at it when we're making decisions. So as you all know, as grapes ripen, they accumulate sugar, and their acidity declines in them. So acidity goes down with ripening, so pH goes up. How we adjust it, we can talk about this more in detail another day, but mostly using tartaric acid. You can also use malic, but mostly tartaric. There's some physical chemical processes that you could do that we are not really big fans of, such as ion exchange or other types of filtering and so on. And then of course malolactic, because as you might remember from the last chat like this that we did, when we do malolactic fermentation, the pH goes up and makes the wine more stable, since lactic acid is more stable than malic acid. Now back to the most important things that we look at when talking about pH. It affects the microbiology of the wine for several things. At higher pH, the grapes are going to have higher loads of microbes, because most bacteria are inhibited below 3.5 pH, but over that, especially bacteria, but also yeast, tend to increase. At pHs over 4, there's a serious increase of detrimental microbes in must and in wine. So that's why we might try to adjust the wine to a lower pH when we receive it, because we don't want to benefit the populations of Brettanomyces, Lactobacillus, Pediococcus, and those microbes that we don't like so much. Most importantly, pH affects the effectivity of sulfur. There's different types of sulfur within sulfites, but at a higher pH, the molecular fraction of sulfur, which is what protects wine against other microbes, is lower. So that goes to say that at a higher pH, we have less protection at the same level of free sulfur. So if we have two wines at a free sulfur level of 35 parts per million, but one has a pH of 3.3 and another one has a pH of 4, the one at 3.3 is going to be much more protected than the one at pH 4, even at the same level of free sulfur, because that free sulfur contains more, or is more in the molecular form at lower pHs. I hope that's not too much. I think you guys are following. So let's get to the next one. After talking about microbial and the effect of pH and microbiology in must and in wine, oxidation. In general, a higher pH wine is going to be more prone to oxidation for different physical-chemical processes, but especially during the fermentation and during the crash. The reason that we add a little bit of sulfur, sometimes between 20 and 35 parts at a crash, is to protect the wine against these enzymes that exist in all fruits, including grapes, polyphenol oxidase. At a higher pH, as we said, we have less molecular sulfur that's going to protect the wine, so there's going to be more activity of polyphenol oxidase. And if you think about it, when you're home and you chop some apples, you know that if you put some lemon juice on them, they don't brown and they don't get oxidized. That's the same effect of polyphenol oxidase. At a lower pH, that's what that lemon juice would do in your apple slices. Polyphenol oxidase is going to have less activity and it's going to take longer to brown and to oxidize organic substrate, such as our grape juice or must. So in short, higher pH, more risk of oxidation. Lastly, pH is really important for wine stability for several things, as we already talked about: microbial stability, oxidation, but also physical things such as the potassium bitartrate precipitation, or the tartrate crystals that we all know, is going to affect haziness or protein stability. This is what we treat using bentonite, but we have to take pH into account because it affects the stability of these proteins and how much bentonite we need to use to remove them. And finally, color. Anthocyanins, which are the most important color particle in must and in wine, change their color slightly with different pH. So at a higher pH, they're going to be more blue and purple, and at a lower pH, they're going to be more red and in general more stable. So in short, pH is a really important chemical marker that we use for winemaking especially, but remember that it's not necessarily very well correlated with the perception of acidity. If you want to know and want to compare how tart or sour a wine is, you might as well look at the TA. If you want to look at winemaking and making technical decisions for making your best wine possible, you're going to be working with pH a lot. That was it. Thank you guys. And next we have Rob, Stu, and Jenny from the tasting room talking about BarrelBreak 2026, which I hope that you guys have already RSVP'd for.
Thanks, Professor Paco. We're in the tasting room. We're here to talk about BarrelBreak. BarrelBreak! And this is where it'll all start. We'll have our welcoming party here. In the past, we've made paella. Maybe that'll happen again, we don't know. Be sure to RSVP, and I'm gonna hand it over to Stu to talk about the next day.
Yeah, so on that Thursday night, we often have at the reception, we greet everyone with wine and food and good cheer. Day 2, so this is a 3-day shindig. Day 2, we'll have a tasting exercise workshop. Sometimes we've had famous wine people from around the valley who have made significant contributions to the industry. And then guild members will also have a separate meeting to kind of focus in on the entity of what that's all about. So there'll be some useful information and also a state of the state. And then on Friday night, there's an optional dinner. And we've all had an opportunity to go. We get a local chef, and all of the ingredients are sourced by hobbits, and it's made by elves. The meals are a fantastic way for all of us to share in this this rare thing that we get to do, which is make wine and build community. Highly, highly recommended. And it's kind of a full day affair, so you have to pace yourself, because not only is there a reception on Thursday, not only are there multiple events on Friday, I pass it over to the big kahuna over here, Rob, Saturday.
Yeah, Saturday. So Saturday's the big day. So we kind of start off Saturday with some sort of kind of tasting workshop, tasting event. It's been different each time. And then we get to the big boy, the grand tasting, where we do barrel samples, we taste it from the barrels. So if you have a barrel that you're making, you can get a sample of that. If you don't, that's okay, you can taste other barrels. And it's just a big party. Last year we had a taco truck, my buddy came and played some music, and everyone just hung out and drank a bunch of wine and had a really good time. And then after that, an after party. If you have the stamina for that, come back over to the tasting room and do an after party. But one of the best things about BarrelBreak is seeing customers that do not know each other, that you would not expect to become fast friends, becoming fast friends. I've seen it multiple times. It's very cool. People sharing their wine and just looking over and seeing two different customers that you wouldn't think would know each other having a great time together. So it's a great time for community. It's a great time to just hang out and enjoy wine.
Cheers. We're looking forward to having you. So next month, we're going to be putting in each of the links for you to RSVP for each of the exercises, and we really look forward to having you. BarrelBreak.
Super fun.